What up, my man of society? It is your host with the most, Shadow Loke, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. It's absolutely free. Don't cost a damn thing. You're the man of society. Now, what I wanted to get into was actually a conversation I was having with an individual on a different channel, right? It was a channel that was talking about different types of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, right? And we started talking, and he ended up, subbing to my channel and scoping my stuff out. And he said that, now it seems that, I don't, believe in a lot of the conspiracy theories, right? Or the supernatural and stuff like that, right? So, he actually found it interesting, like, oh, then why do you watch, like conspiracy stuff and stuff like that? And I told him, it's not that I don't like it. People think that I have some kind of, like, hatred towards that or something like that, like some kind of vendetta, but I don't. Like I watch these channels and read these books and stuff like that to get an understanding of why they view it from the point of view that they're viewing it from, right? Like there potentially could be some truth to what they're saying or something like that, right? I'm never going in there already, set that these guys are wrong and lying and stuff like that, right? I go in there, wanting to understand, why they see it the way they see it and think the way that they think, right? And, maybe, gather some now intel, like of, maybe if there's some truth to it, right? That's why I watch it. I don't go in there automatically like, okay, yeah, these people are wrong, and now I'm just not even gonna listen to them and poke holes all over their stuff. You know what I mean? I actually sit there and I, read and listen, right? To the information, because you're never gonna learn something, or you know what I mean, or you can't be so, stubborn and hard-headed to not even willing to hear the other side, right? Just because you think that you're right. Because nothing is set 100, so, you could potentially be wrong, right? So I always go in there with that kind of mindset, right? Of why individuals see it the way they see it. When it comes to, like, let's say, possession, the devil and stuff like that, right? A lot of the reason why they think a lot of these people are like part of some satanic group or devil or some type of group like that is because the scary thought that this type of individual lives in all of us, right? Like we could all potentially be these kind of people, right? Like the individuals that do the most heinous crimes, like that part of man exists in each and every one of us, right? Like that we're actually capable of doing something as hideous as that, right? So people want to separate themselves, as much as possible from that, right? Because the thought of, this person, is just another human being like me, he was born into this world, like, and he was capable of doing all of this shit, that no, there must be something else, like there must be something more to it, because it's the scary reality of like, damn, then we can all literally be pushed to this point, potentially, right? That potentially this could be any of us, right? And that's the thought that scares people, right? The realization that it could be your neighbor, your brother, your cousin, your friend, you know what I mean? Or even yourself, right? So that's why, people choose to, involve other things, right? To try to separate themselves as far as possible from, these kind of individuals, right? A lot of people, when they see a connection, right? When they see, that somebody shares something in common with somebody, or they share, things differently, right? That's what they, they choose to blame for people's bad behavior, right? Like if somebody, if somebody is like, let's say, for example, better than you at something, right? And you're not willing to admit, that this person's better than you and willing to meet your different, that you lost fair and square, whatever. Some individuals will go and say that they cheated, and they cheated because of their, skin color or their ethnicity, right? It's one of the things that would get used a lot before, right? and why they choose to target, individuals and make them, less, right? It's a lot more easier to get people to jump on your bandwagon, right, when you choose to home in people's negative energy towards something. And what is the most visual thing that separates people? Skin colors, right? That's why it's the most easiest one to always use, right? But it's one of those ploys, that these people are just not willing to accept that people are different, or not willing to accept that cultures are different. Not meaning that this culture is better than your culture, right? But that things are different, right? So some individuals, because some individuals believe that the way they live and the way they think is the right way and the only way, to be living life, right? And of course, since they're a part of that culture, that they believe that theirs is the one that's the right one, because that's the one that they're a part of. It's a game of egos. But that's why, a lot of people, choose to, target certain individuals or put them in certain categories, right? Just to separate themselves from what they consider to be, negative or evil, or, or that, yeah, there's no way in hell that I could ever become like that, you know what I mean? Because the thought of potentially, you could is, scares people, bro. Now, like, it's like saying before, like for me, for example, mental illness has always existed, right? This is not something that's new to man, right? So just have people that are born with schizophrenia or any type of brain disorder, right? Where people, have a screw loose or two, right? You see them talking to themselves, and multiple personality disorder, right? These are not new diseases, bro. These are, have been around as long as man, right? So now, imagine we now have the research and the, knowledge, right, of why individuals are the way that they are, right? Now, we have an understanding that, okay, it could be schizophrenia or any other type of, mental disorder, right? You semi-know, about, people's, illnesses, right? Because that's the knowledge that we have now. But picture it back in the days, right? When they didn't have the technology or the knowledge that we have now, right? And so now these people have multiple personality disorders where they're able to change their voices, how strong they are, they get this superhuman strength. They're able to change the way they talk and walk. It's crazy, right? If you have, I don't know if people have ever, seen, interviews or studies where they're studying, somebody with a multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, right? How they're able to change their voices and their postures and everything, right? Their whole demeanor, and it's crazy though, bro. So now we have an understanding of that now, right? But imagine before, when they didn't have this technology and this research and everything. Now you're seeing these people talking to themselves and going crazy and all this and that, bro. And of course, with all this talk of, ghouls and witches and ghosts and everything like that, of course you're going to think that person was possessed. Of course you were going to think that demons or something is afoot, Because that was a natural thing to go to, because people don't like to be in the unknown. They don't like not knowing what's happening or not knowing things, right? So they need an explanation for stuff, right? People need answers, right? And the most common and easiest one to go to before, because you didn't need no explanation for it, was they're possessed by the devil or it's some kind of demon, right? Because you don't need no evidence for that and everything. People were just going to take your word for it. That's what it had to be, right? And the best way to combat it was whatever means that they had, right? Burn them to the stake or throw them in like the Salem witch trials, where they threw them in the water. They came back up, they were witches, and now they were not witches, which is fucking stupid. But like I said before, people didn't have the knowledge, or that was the common sense back then. So that's how they thought that it was the best way to handle this kind of things. Because like I said, bro, we weren't properly educated like we are now, right? Man has came a long way since then, right? So now we understand that it could have been this. So now if we're looking at it now, going back in time, right? Like, could it not have been potentially that it was any of these mental illnesses and not actually demons and ghouls and goblins and all that? To me, that seems more logical, bro. Like, it's the most logical answer to me, bro. Like, yeah, maybe it wasn't demons and all this and that. Maybe it was just this and that. Because now that we have the modern technologies that we have now, right? With so many cameras and all this and that, it's odd that all of a sudden all the ghost stories and demon stories and monsters and goblins and everything, like now all of a sudden you don't hear as many of those stories as before, right? Like as more advanced that we get in our technology, we get less and less of these stories and reports of these, phenomenons. And it's like, why isn't that now the technology is getting better, that now the reports of all of this is getting, less and less, because maybe people are now realizing that it's not so easy to tell the fairy tale that they want to tell. And people can't even say, why would somebody lie about that? Because you see it all the time on social media. People lie about the most. Like, why would somebody make up that story? Or why did people, have the need to make up some shit like this? Or, you see people make up all kinds of stuff all the damn time, and people are right there like, why the fuck would they do that for? You see it happen all the time on social media, bro. So people can't even say, why would they have been lying? Bro, because man has been lying as man has been here, bro. That's nothing new, right? So that to me just seems like the most, logical one, that people were making up a lot of this shit, and because they didn't have an understanding for what they were seeing or what was going on, right? Like before, like we're still discovering animals nowadays, right? We're still discovering new types of, creatures and animals, and like I said, our planet, is vast, right? We haven't, explored, all the creeks and cracks of this planet, right? So we're still discovering animals. So imagine back then, right? When people weren't used to seeing certain type of animals. Let's say the person's first time seeing a bear, yeah, they were gonna say that the bear, because man likes to exaggerate anytime they pass a story on, or recap on their story, right? They always add a little bit extra to it. That's the way it is. Like that one test that they say, where you tell somebody a story, then they tell it, and it starts changing as it goes, right? Because people start now putting their inputs in there and stuff like that. So yeah. If he said that the bear was like 10 feet tall with claws and fangs, right? And they didn't know it was a bear at that time, right? Because they had no knowledge of what a bear was, right? Or let's say an alligator or an elephant, for that matter. Like, oh, it was this big monster that was, fang, and it had two big horns and made this big sound. And yeah, people were going to be scared out of their minds, for the first time seeing that for the first time. They probably were like, what the, So then they start telling these stories of these monsters, right? But they were just, these animals, right? And they get passed on and passed on and passed on and passed on, right? That people start believing this, folklore, right? Of these tales, right? Because they've been around for so long. But could it possibly not have been, something like this, You know what I mean? Or let's say when you're in a house, right, and you know that when the wind travels, right, so it travels from the indoor, how wind travels, right, how air travels, right, that it closes the door, right? Imagine when you had no knowledge of what was happening, right, at the moment, you were gonna think that was a ghost that was doing that, right? Because we didn't have the knowledge that we have now from studies and stuff like that. So of course you were gonna think it was a ghost that closed the door. What else? What other explanation could there be? You know what I mean? But now, as we understand stuff and how it works and why things the way they work, right? Why houses even make creaks and cracks sounds, right? Because of the heat. All day is getting heat from the sun, right? It's absorbing all that heat. You know what happens with heat? Anytime it comes in contact with something, it expands it, right? So what happens when it cools down? That what expanded, goes back to its normal shape. Just like a house, right? Heat is hitting it, it expands. During the night, it cools down. That you start hearing the creaks and crack sounds that your house makes. It's science, bro. But like I said, we didn't have the knowledge back then, right? So they're hearing all these sounds, and of course they're gonna think it's like goblins and stuff like that. But that's honestly what I thought it was. It's just that it was, man being man, right? At the time, we didn't have the understanding, right? Now we have came a long way from then. But overall, that's just my personal opinion on, the supernatural and what I believe and why people see it the way they see it. But I'm saying, Shadow, we out.